Welcome to the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
Hello, Heisman.
Chuck Conrad with a kickoff. Roy Evans, strong leg, end over end. Sanders takes it 1 yard deep to the end zone. Up the middle, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 40, 50, 10, 5, touchdown.
And the winner is...
Here's your host, Chris Houston.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the official Heisman Trophy podcast. Woo, was that a great weekend of college football or what? Just a bevy of outstanding team and individual performances, highlighted by that humdinger of a game on Saturday night in South Bend that saw Ohio State edge the Irish in the final seconds, a result that could have significant playoff and Heisman implications down the road. Last week, our podcast guest was Sam Hartman, the Irish quarterback who nearly pulled it out for Notre Dame. This week, our featured guest is another participant in that game, Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. And he's going to give us an update on how he's doing after that ankle injury that he suffered. And in our second segment, we have a very cool feature called Unsung Heisman Plays, in which we will discuss the famous 1994 miracle in Michigan involving the Colorado Buffaloes and the Michigan Wolverines. Finally, the 2008 Heisman Humanitarian Award winner joins us, one of the great American hockey players of all time. Yes, that's right. We're talking hockey on a Heisman podcast. Pat LaFontaine. He's going to tell us about his amazing charitable efforts. So if you feel like being inspired today, I suggest you stick around for that final segment. But before we get to Marvin Harrison, it's time to round up what's going on in the Heisman world.
It's the Heisman Roundup, Week 4.
If you're like us, and face it, if you're listening to this, you probably are, you watched somewhere between 8 and 10 hours of college football last Saturday on an epic day of action. Maybe more. We checked in at about 14 hours ourselves with occasional breaks to walk the dog and get a bit of that first fall sunshine and brisk air. There were so many impressive games and performances to highlight, but we went looking for a few under the radar. First up, Utah linebacker Jonah Ellis, who played a key role in number 11 Utah's 14-7 win over number 22 UCLA. Ellis registered 3.5 of Utah's 7 sacks and had 5 tackles for loss among a team-high 10 tackles. 1.5 of those sacks were pivotal in ending UCLA's final drive in its tracks, including this one on first down.
The freshman hit and dropped, swung around by Ellis, who has lived in the backfield.
Keeping it in the Pac-12 with another battle of ranked teams, number 21 Washington State defeated number 14 Oregon State 38-35 behind Cougar quarterback Cam Ward. The junior passed for 404 yards and 4 touchdowns and also rushed for a score to help Wazoo move to 4-0. Ward is now 3rd nationally in passing yards per game and 3rd in TD passes with 13. Washington State coach Jake Dickert was rightly pumped after the win and had some thoughts on his quarterback's Heisman hopes.
For us to go out there and gut out a win, pull out all the stops, our guys to go out there and execute, and that's a Heisman-worthy type performance from Cameron Ward, and he's not even in that conversation. I don't know why.
He is now, Coach. Transitioning over to the Big 12, running back DJ Giddens posted a career-best effort in leading Kansas State to a 44-31 win over Central Florida. The sophomore rushed for 207 yards, more than the combined total from his first 3 games this year, and 4 touchdowns. He also posted team highs with 8 receptions for 86 yards to finish with 293 all-purpose yards. That total includes this 18-yard scoring burst, his 3rd TD of the first half.
Giddens has the first down. Giddens! Touchdown! Kansas State! This kid can play!
South Florida junior wide receiver Naeem Simmons set a program record with 272 yards on 8 receptions in the Bulls' 42-29 win over Rice. A transfer from Wagner, Simmons, who had 85 total receiving yards through 3 games, caught 1 scoring pass in the victory. This 49-yard pass from quarterback Byron Brown.
Brown slings it wide open! Touchdown South Florida! Naeem Simmons!
Wrapping up our roundup is Louisville quarterback Jack Plummer, who completed 18 of 21 passes for 388 yards and 5 touchdowns while rushing for a 6th score in a 56-28 victory over Boston College. Plummer completed 15 straight passes at one point, the 4th best streak in program history. 7 of his passes went for 27 yards or more, including this 55-yard bomb for the Cardinals' final score.
Plummer, play action. Under pressure, throws it down the field, got a man, Thomas Bruce, who gets in the end zone, touchdown!
Hey college football fans, tickets to the 2023 Heisman Trophy Dinner Gala are now on sale. The event takes place in New York City on Sunday, December 10th, the day after the Heisman Trophy ceremony. The guest of honor for the gala is the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner, as well as the 50th anniversary winner John Cappelletti, the 25th anniversary winner Ricky Williams, and the 10th anniversary winner Jameis Winston. Plus, we'll also be honoring the 2023 Heisman Humanitarian Award winner. Just go to Heisman.com to purchase tickets and witness Heisman history. Our first guest on the show today, like all of our guests, is one of the best football players in the entire country, arguably the top wide receiver in the entire country. Last year, he was a Biletnikoff finalist, catching 77 balls for 1,263 yards with 14 touchdowns, and that was as a second-year sophomore. So far this season, this 6'4", 205-pound ball catcher has 17 catches for 336 yards, averaging just under 20 yards a pop with 3 touchdowns. Last year, he was a unanimous All-American selection and, of course, is a highly coveted prospect for next year's NFL draft. We connected with Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. last night just after practice. He got his ankle rolled up against Notre Dame, but the Buckeyes do have a bye week, so he has some time to heal up. And here's what he had to say. Okay, you're coming off a huge win at Notre Dame, and you came back from what looked to be a bad ankle injury to help the Buckeyes on a late fourth quarter drive with a big 19-yard catch. So we have to start with asking, how are you feeling right now?
I feel okay. Trying to get my ankle back to as close to 100% as possible. Just get ready for it. I got a bye week right now, so I'll do as much rehab as I can for my ankle.
Is it going to be a process that's an easy process, or something you've got to just do every day, pretty much?
Yeah, it's going to be something I got to battle with the whole season.
Right. So the Buckeyes went 65 yards and 15 plays to win the game, and there were a couple timeouts along the way as you guys drove down the field. When you took those breaks, what was the energy like with your teammates?
We knew we were in a good position to win. Just keep going. Obviously, our defense had a good stop. Gave us the ball back with a lot of time left. So, we work on it in practice every Sunday, 2-minute drill. So, just do what we do in practice, and then we'll like the outcome.
On that game-winning touchdown, you were lined up slot right. I assume you knew it was going to be a run. What went through your head? What went through your head in those final moments of the game?
I knew we were running the ball, so let's just get a yard, win the game. Offensive line got to do their job. The game's kind of out of my hands at that point, but I have faith in my teammates that they're going to get the job done and execute.
With the crowd being so loud and that moment being so dramatic, is it something where do you just block all that out when you're at that level?
Yeah, you don't hear nothing when you're on the field. You're just kind of so locked in. You don't really hear the crowd at all.
Yeah. Notre Dame doubled you a lot. So between that and the ankle, it was kind of a modest night statistically for you. But your presence out there really opened up opportunities for the rest of the offense. Meanwhile, the play you got hurt, you made a key block to spring that touchdown. So when the balls aren't coming your way as much, is it hard to stay focused and contribute in other ways?
I would say as a competitor, you want the ball to come to. You want to be involved in the offense and in the game. But like you said, when you're getting double coverage most of the time, safety help, safety inside the corner outside leverage is kind of hard to get you the ball. So just any way that you can impact the game and help the team win, that's what I try to do. That's what I keep my mindset on.
Yeah. It's not a bad time for a bye week, like you mentioned, so you can heal up. And you guys are 4-0, and you're on a high note after Saturday's win. I know you're going to be focused on healing, but what's your usual bye week routine?
That's more so just really what it is, healing as much as I can. I'll probably just watch some college football games this Saturday, enjoy being a fan of football instead of playing this week. But just healing my body as much as I can.
What teams are you thinking about watching?
I don't even know who's playing this week, to be honest with you. I'm just going to turn the TV on. Whoever's playing is playing.
Yeah. Going back in time a little bit, growing up with the Hall of Fame wide receivers, your dad, you think you were always destined to be a receiver, or was there ever a point where you wanted to play a different position or a different sport?
Growing up, I kind of want to play basketball. I really enjoyed playing basketball. Up until like 9th grade, I got my first offer from football. And then I got like the offers started to pile in for football. I was like, all right, I'm gonna just stick to football. And I definitely have a love for football, and it's grown over the years. That's something I really want to do. And but I wouldn't really say, oh, my dad pushed me to, you got to play football, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of gave me the freedom to choose what I wanted to do, so I chose football, and that's what I think, best step.
Yeah. Was there a point when you realized that you could really catch the ball? Like that was something that you could do, like especially well?
No. I wouldn't think I really. When I think over the years, since I got to college, my ball skills have improved. I don't think they're elite now. They definitely weren't elite in high school, so I'm still working on them each and every day, just trying to improve as much as I can in that area.
Yeah. So how often do you and your dad talk about the craft of being a wideout, or does he leave that mostly for the Buckeye staff?
Definitely both, a little bit of both. If he notices something's on the field, he'll let me know. Sunday, the next day, and we'll talk about it a little bit like that. But I think he has trust in Coach Hartline and Coach Day that they're going to look out for me as well.
When you got to Ohio State, the roster was stacked with 3 future first-round picks at wide receiver. What was that wide receiver room like, and what did you pick up from those vets to help you as a freshman?
It was challenging. You go into a room with so many great receivers. I think the best thing you do in that situation is just learn from all of them. Learn how they handle themselves on the field and off the field. Just take as much as you can from them. It's not really a lot of times where you get to walk into a room and there's 3 first-round. I think it's 4 first-round receivers. I think James Williams was there as well when I got there. So that's special. That's a special room. And just like I said, just try to take as much as you can from them.
You played with 2-time Heisman finalist C.J. Stroud for 2 seasons, and now you're paired with Kyle McCord, who was your quarterback in high school, and the two of you won 3 straight titles together. So what's that chemistry like between the two of you?
It's great. I think obviously high school and college is definitely different, so you still have to get on the same page from a college speed of the game standpoint. But that just comes with more and more reps that we have together. I think we're great friends off the field as well, so I think definitely have a good connection.
Who's the toughest corner you've ever gone up against?
Deontay Banks from Maryland.
All right. I talked to Kalen King earlier in the year, and he told me that you were the toughest receiver he's gone up against.
Nice. I look forward to. I think he's definitely up there. I think I'll see him later on this year. So he's great. He's a great player as well.
What's the best part about playing college football?
Oh, the atmosphere. I don't think you'll get that atmosphere even at the next level. Just the fan base of college football. I think that's one of a kind. So just the atmosphere and playing in front of for me to shoot Ohio State, 110,000 fans, every Saturday. That's awesome.
What's been your favorite moment as a Buckeye so far?
The Rose Bowl my freshman year, the first start. I got 3 touchdowns that game. It's just a moment I'll never forget.
You're a finance major at Ohio State and made the All Big Ten academic team. What's been your favorite class so far?
I think I took this one human development class as an elective. I just really like that. That and another psychology class as an elective that I took. I don't know. I just really enjoy the mind and just learning about mindsets and things like that. So that's probably my favorite classes.
What did the human development class teach you?
Just how the mind grows from the adolescent years to from teenage years, adolescence to emerging into adulthood. As you get older and older, just the experiences that you have in life, just how those build up and shape you to who you are.
Yeah, I think it's age 25 when the frontal cortex doesn't fully develop.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Yeah. So you partnered with Ronald McDonald House in Central Ohio. What was that experience? What has that experience meant for you?
It means a lot for one particular, just such a good cause. Got to go there a couple of times to see all the work that they do for so many families. It's really amazing. And anytime that I come in there, I always get so many smiles from the kids and things like that. So anytime I can put a smile on their face, it makes my day better as well.
Have you thought about in the future when your career is more developed and you want to get into some more charitable efforts? Have you thought about those kinds of endeavors?
Yes, definitely more in the future. Like I said, I just know how good of a cause it is, and I also would like to put that kind of positivity out, have that come from me, Like, I just kind of know the influence that I have. So just to bring awareness to that is definitely something I want to do in the future.
Okay, if you were a Heisman voter and you wanted to vote for a receiver, what little things would you be looking for in a player? Like beyond the catches and yards, what things do you think really make a receiver stand out?
I would really just the impact that he has on the team. Like you said, when you're not getting the ball as much, but you're still out there commanding double teams, helping the other receivers get open. I think, when you're one of the best players in the country, which is the Heisman Award, I think you just sometimes command that respect from opposing teams and opposing coordinators. They kind of have to respect you. So when you're a receiver, getting that double coverage, it just shows, like I said, how much respect they have for you as a player. So I think that's something you have to look for as well. So maybe you might not get the stats that you as much as someone who's not getting double teams, things like that. So I think it's something when you're voting for the best player has to be taken into account.
Marvin Harrison Jr., thanks for coming on the official Heisman Trophy podcast. I know you got some healing to do, so we appreciate you taking the time. We wish you the best of health and getting healthy and the best for your team and in the future.
Of course. Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
This is Archie Griffin, 1974, 1975's Heisman Trophy winner, and you're listening to the official Heisman podcast.
Today we debut a segment we call Unsung Heisman Plays. We're going to dig into a specific moment in a Heisman winner's career that might have been overshadowed by bigger moments, but are certainly worth remembering. And we're going to kick it off by diving into the miracle at Michigan, the Kordell Stewart to Michael Westbrook Hail Mary connection that gave the 1994 Colorado Buffaloes a 27-26 win over the Wolverines at the Big House. But you're probably saying, wait, neither Kordell Stewart nor Michael Westbrook won the Heisman. And that's true, but Rashaan Salaam did, and on that fateful early fall play, Salaam threw a block, the key block, that bought just enough time for the miracle at Michigan to happen. Let's roll the tape.
3 wideouts at the top of the picture. Stewart with time. Lets it go. He's got 3 people down there. The ball's up in the air. Caught. Touchdown. Caught by Westbrook for a touchdown. Incredible.
Wow, it doesn't get much better than hearing Keith Jackson call one of the most famous plays in college football history. So what exactly did Rashaan Salaam do? Well, basically, his job. Salaam, who sadly died in 2016, was part of an explosive 1994 Colorado team under head coach Bill McCartney that featured many future NFL players, including Stewart and Westbrook. Salaam's 2,055 rushing yards that year led the nation, as did his 24 touchdowns on a team that finished the season ranked 3rd in the polls. So Salaam was a huge star, but he didn't act like one.
Rashaan was having a great year that year. He was the most humble guy, never really wanted the spotlight. And we he always gave all the credit to his offensive line. He was the most humble, caring. He was a great teammate. Like as a player, you wanted to block for him. We wanted him to win the Heisman. Everything about him because he was so selfless.
That was Tony Berti, Colorado's starting left tackle that year and another future NFL player. He was forever tied to Salaam after the Hail Mary. More from him later. Colorado went 11-1 in 1994 and won 9 of those games by double digits. But in the 3rd game of the season at the Big House in Ann Arbor, they were in for a fight. Salaam himself had a strong game, rushing for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. Colorado raced to a 14-3 lead midway through the second quarter, but Michigan would score the game's next 23 points and went ahead 26-14 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. The Buffs finally got cooking midway through the fourth and put together a long drive that ended with Salaam's second TD of the day, but with only 2:16 left to play.
It was a really weird game because we jumped on them and they got us in the second quarter. Then they got us in the third quarter and we came back and got them in the fourth quarter.
That's Dave Plati, who served as Colorado's sports information director for almost 4 decades and who still works in the Buffs athletic department. He was in the press box that game with Colorado's radio team.
So it was 26-14 at one point in the fourth. We cut it to 26-21. But before that play, with 5 minutes to go, Kordell fumbled at the goal line. And had there been instant replay, we were convinced they would have ruled that he actually had scored. So the miracle of Michigan may never needed to happen.
Alas, replay in college football was still a decade away. Following Salaam's second score, Colorado forced Michigan to punt, but time was ticking away, and fast.
We did hold them to 3 and out, but there were a bunch of penalties going back and forth between the two teams, and it was taking time off the clock. So by the time we got the ball back, Chris Hudson was our punt returner, and they punted the ball to him. He signaled for a fair catch at our 15-yard line.
Colorado had 14 seconds left. Kordell found Westbrook in the middle of the field for 21 yards for a first down at the 36-yard line. Then Stewart quickly spiked the ball to stop the clock with 6 seconds left. All 105,000 fans in attendance knew what the next play call would be. In fact, Colorado ran it at the end of the first half. It didn't go well, as then Colorado offensive coordinator Rick Neuheisel explains.
Well, first of all, the one thing people don't realize is we ran the same play at the end of the first half and threw an interception. The reason being is both Michael Westbrook and Ray Caruth tried to get off the line of scrimmage. They ran into each other and knocked each other down. And so we made a switch. I don't recall any time in my career that we ever fixed a Hail Mary play at halftime. But we made a switch that basically crossed Caruth and Westbrook on the play. And Westbrook would then take Ray's job, which was to be down the sideline and be the rebounder. And as it turned out, it was a pretty good correction.
Stewart lined up under center on the play with Salaam set 5 yards back and 3 receivers wide left. Michigan only rushed 3 on the play, but one was future NFL All-Pro Trevor Pryce, who lined up over Berti.
Well, so there's only 3 men, but that third guy on my side was this guy named Trevor Pryce. I don't know if you've heard about him. Played for the Broncos for a long, big, giant monster of a human being. A pretty good player. They were sliding the lower line to the right because Kordell was right-handed, so they knew he would roll that way. So, you had your right tackle and your right guard pick up the guy center. So I knew that I had Rashaan helping outside. So I knew there was help there. I underset, Trevor a little bit, expecting a little more bull rush than I got, and fell down on a knee, and then Rashaan was there to help, and then Kordell had time to throw that ball.
It did seem to take forever, and you're right, because Pryce had slipped Berti's block at the start, and Rashaan was there to pick him up, and he kind of held Pryce at bay until Tony gathered himself in, and then he caked him.
Neuheisel didn't see the block until after the game. He was too concerned with making sure Kordell threw the ball far enough.
Well, I got to tell you, I didn't watch that portion of it, as I was just getting ready to watch the trajectory of the throw, because Kordell had run over to me after completing the pass previous. And I said, okay, you got to heave this thing, but it has to land in the end zone. It's like a wedge shot. You got to get it down there, and you got to buy time for them to get there, because it's a 65-yard throw from where he was. I think the line of scrimmage was the 36. But in watching the film, Rashaan Salaam was off the charts in terms of the physicality he provided on that block to get Kordell the ability to crow hop into that throw and launch what I would call the most beautiful wedge shot in the history of college football.
And then, Bedlam. Tony Berti.
I didn't see the catch. I saw everybody running downfield. I saw our sideline going crazy. I saw the 3,000, 4,000 fans that we had there, that section, going crazy. Again, that's something you just don't ever expect to happen. And then I don't think I actually saw it till it was on the replay screen.
Dave Plati.
I just remember the whole team sprinting down, and Kordell's on the ABC highlight, running down there in about 4.5 seconds, I think, from our own 40 or wherever he was.
Back to Berti.
It was amazing. It was, that game was such a tough game, and we were in a battle the whole time. And Coach Mack going back to Michigan, where he had coached with Bo Schembechler, and be at that. Michigan Stadium's one of the great college stadiums to play in, and to go in there and the 105,000 people. I mean, Boulder at the time held 55,000, so it was twice our stadium. That stadium's gigantic. So just to go into that place and play that game and come out with that outcome, it was pretty magical.
A week later, Salaam rushed for a season-high 317 yards in a 34-31 win at Texas, rolling up a school record 353 yards in total offense. While there was some uncertainty early in the year who would become Colorado's main Heisman candidate on a team that was filled with stars, it was the strong and silent Salaam who emerged. And Plati remembers his humility from the night he won the Heisman.
He never wanted any credit. And when he won the Heisman that night, and we went out afterwards, and then we were there for 3 days, because back then you had the players' dinner on just the former players' dinner on the Monday and the big banquet on Tuesday. And he felt so bad when we heard that the offensive line back in Boulder, when his name was announced, they all lit up cigars. And he said, God, I would have rather have been there than here, because he was always a little bit shy, kind of stayed away from the limelight and the hoopla and everything, and really took care of his offensive linemen. He wanted to be there so bad.
Uncomfortable in the spotlight is the way I guess I would best describe Rashaan. And I think that, he would have preferred every one of those offensive linemen and quarterback and receivers to have been in New York with him.
And we'll let Tony Berti have the last word on this remarkable story.
Rashaan's job was to help outside and block. And when I got in trouble, man, he was right there for me. And we were able to take care of Trevor, and that gave Kordell the time backside to get that ball off. So when we actually spoke about Rashaan at an event one time, and I talked about 3 or 4 things, and that play was one of the things I talked about, because without Rashaan, I might have fallen down, Kordell might have gotten sacked, and that game is a whole different way.
Take an even deeper dive into Heisman lore by going to Heisman.com, home to all things Heisman, including news, bios, and the latest on all the winners, plus updates on the Heisman Trophy Trust and its charitable mission. It's the A to Z for everything Heisman, from Alan Amici to Danny Werfel. We really need a Heisman winner whose name begins with Z. Before we get to our next segment, it's time for our weekly trivia question. Last week's trivia question was, who were the 3 Heisman winners who were born outside the United States? Brady Olenek of Houston, Georgia guessed correctly. Robert Griffin III from Japan, Tim Tebow from the Philippines, and Georgia's Frank Sinkwich from Croatia. We sent him a Heisman hat. Congratulations, Brady. This week's trivia question is, who is the first Heisman Trophy winner to rush for 1,000 yards in a season? If you know the answer to that one, just email us at pod@heisman.com. That's pod@heisman.com. And if you get the correct answer, we will send you a Heisman hat or a Heisman duffel bag. Good luck. For this week's final segment, we're very excited to feature our first Heisman Humanitarian Award winner. The Heisman Trust began giving out a Heisman Humanitarian Award in 2006 to honor athletes who provide opportunities for those less fortunate in all walks of life. The Heisman Trust didn't have to look far for its third winner in 2008, turning to hockey legend Pat LaFontaine, who spent his entire NHL career in the state of New York. Arguably the NHL's greatest American-born player, LaFontaine finished his 15-year NHL career as the all-time leader for American-born players in points per games played. Toward the end of his Hall of Fame career, LaFontaine started the Companions in Courage Foundation, an organization that provides support, friendship, compassion, and resources for children and families who are overcoming life-threatening obstacles. Imagine for a moment you're a child who's stuck in the hospital for a period of time dealing with a life-threatening illness. What Pat has done is provided playrooms and clubhouses filled with video games and other devices that cater to young patients, so kids can go back to being kids for a while and forget that they're in the hospital. And what Pat and his foundation have discovered over the years is that these rooms often provide a new avenue for physical and emotional recovery in the process. So we hope this segment inspires you as much as it inspired us. Pat LaFontaine, thanks for coming on the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
Great to be on, Chris.
So just for the sake of some of our listeners who may not be as big of a hockey fans as others, can you tell me a little bit about your background growing up in Michigan and growing up as a hockey player?
Sure. Well, actually, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. I learned to skate there in an outdoor rink in Kirkwood, Missouri. My dad worked with Chrysler and was transferred to Michigan, where the rest of the LaFontaine and LaPierre families lived. And that's where I started playing organized hockey on Lakeland Arena and on Williams Lake. We bought a house right on the lake and started skating and playing all my minor hockey in the Michigan area. Played for all the local teams in Waterford there, and just really enjoyed it. My dad was a coach. My brother was a year older, so I always played a year older. I was when I was 7, I played against 8 and 9-year-olds, and et cetera, till I was 16. But played all my minor hockey right in the Michigan area, and then was fortunate enough to go to Montreal and play for the Verdun Juniors, which were the junior Canadians, and spent my senior year of high school playing hockey. A bunch of my friends were asking me what the heck I was doing back in 1982, 83. Why would you want to go to Montreal and miss all the football games on Friday nights? But I followed my passion and love for hockey, and was fortunate enough to join the Olympic team and then off to pro hockey. So that's a little bit of my journey into hockey before I became a pro.
You were on the Olympic team 4 years after that famous Lake Placid Olympic team won the gold. What was it like, your experience in 84?
It was incredible. There's a good story. The night of my 15th birthday, we had a bunch of friends over, hockey teammates, and that was the night the Russians played the U.S. team for the. It wasn't actually the gold medal game. People forget the next day they had to play Finland, but that was the night of my 15th birthday, and I just remember we were all jumping up and down, super excited, and at that moment I thought, maybe there's a chance I could play on an Olympic team, because where I was from being an American back then, Chris, not a lot of players had made it to pro hockey, and so if you could get a college scholarship, that would be a tremendous accomplishment, and it still is. But now, obviously the roads have been paved and wide open. But that night I said, maybe I could play for an Olympic team. And sure enough, 3.5 years later, I was lucky enough to play in the '84 team and follow that great miracle team of 1980 that paved the road for a lot of us young boys and girls, and I was one of them.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. I think a lot of people went out, and even if you didn't have rinks, people were getting golf clubs and hitting golf balls around, pretending they were playing hockey, even where I was down in Florida. So you went on to the NHL, and you played for all 3 New York teams. Did you ever think you'd have such a great connection with the state and with the city?
I didn't know at the time, and I would have never imagined that I ended up playing my whole career. And I'll go back to when I was 15, 3 or 4 months later, after the Olympic gold medal. My dad had my brother and I doing spring cleaning, and he called us in. I think it was May 18th, and he said, "Hey, they're in overtime." So my brother and I ran in, and sure enough, I watched Lauren Henning pass the puck to John Tonelli to Nystrom. And we were all jumping up and down, and all of Long Island was jumping up and down. And then I grabbed a map, and I said, "Where the heck is Long Island?" and I literally grabbed a map, and I said, "Oh," put my finger. I said, "There it is." So the Islanders put Long Island on the map. And if you would have told me that we would win a gold medal in February, the Islanders would win a Stanley Cup in May, and I would be playing for an Olympic team 3.5 years later, and then 4 years later, I would be playing in the NHL. Looking to my right, it's Bobby Nystrom, and looking to my left is John Tonelli. That was my first game, and that's how I broke into New York State and playing for the Islanders.
Truly an amazing journey. You must have been on the radar of the Heisman around that time. Were you because being in New York City, were you aware of the Heisman? I'm sure. Being an American and growing up in Michigan, which is such a big football state as well, must have been something that you were pretty aware of.
Yeah, Chris, it was always, I believe, on a Saturday they made it in New York City. It was a big event. So that was one of the days. I mean, we followed college football, we followed the NFL. So yeah, it was always, I believe, in December on a Saturday, and so. The Heisman has always been, since I was a kid, just tremendous event and tremendous, history. So, yeah, no, I remember when I was growing up as a kid watching the Heisman Trophy winners.
Okay, walk me through the process. Once you retired from hockey and you founded your Companions and Courage Foundation, what went into your thinking behind that, and how did you go about doing it?
Well, I was always told, I think values start in the home, and school and sports are vehicles to reinforce those values. And, my parents always said, never forget where you came from and always try to help those in need when you can and if you can. And I think I always felt like if I was able to develop a platform as a professional athlete, probably my greatest regret would not take advantage of that platform to give back and try to support those in need. And so the New York Islanders right off the bat, Chris, were heavily involved, into the community and into charities. So it was something that was near and dear. My grandmother passed away of leukemia, and my wife's grandmother had arthritis. And so watching the NHL players and the Islander players, involved in the community, they just really set a good example for a young player when I was 19. And then having, the upbringing. So in honoring my grandmother, my wife's grandmother, I got involved with the Arthritis Foundation and Leukemia Society, and just followed suit and knew that there was an opportunity to give back and help out. And that's how that started. And then it continued to evolve into meeting amazing kids during my playing days. And then one in particular, Chris, his name was Robert Schwegler. I was traded to Buffalo at the time. In fact, you go back to New York State, I think I'm the only athlete who has been traded twice and never changed his license plate. That was a big joke because I don't think it's happened to any other person.
Pretty amazing.
In one state. If you really think about it, I think it's New York and California. That's about the only place it could happen. And rarely do you get traded in the same state. But at the time I was in Buffalo and I got a letter and I just was getting through a major knee surgery. I had my knee reconstructed in 93. And my wife said something very profound because I was involved in giving back in charities and that's what, was an important part of both she and I, we wanted to do and help and give back. But when I went through this, I got some letters to meet some really special kids. And I mentioned one in particular, Robert Schwegler. And Robert was in isolation at Roswell Park Cancer Institute. He had a rare form of leukemia. And I just got off my crutches and my wife said, it was the first time since I was 7 years old that I missed a year of hockey. And it was years later. And she said, I'm sure there's a reason behind everything. We're supposed to learn even through the most difficult times. I'm sure there's something you're supposed to learn through this whole process, as difficult as it is. And when I met Robert, we would play video games, Chris, and I was always the Islanders and the Rangers, and he was always the Sabres, and he would be me and McGillney and Andrew Chuck and Howard Chuck and all the guys. And I think I tied him once in like 3 or 4 months.
Those kids are good.
But every time we played, it was Sega back then. And we would laugh and, I would like, oh, you just scored. I tried, and we'd spend a couple hours and then, big smile and I would leave and became my buddy and friend and checked in on him 2-3 days a week. And one day I was leaving and this nurse, after I got done playing with Robert and some games and talking to him, and I was taking my cap and gown off and she just said, thank you for, playing with Robert. And I said, it's the least I could do. He's my friend. And she grabbed my arm and started to cry. And she said, I don't think you understand. It's the only time this young boy smiles is when you're here. Oh. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I looked back in the room and I saw him smiling and then, kind of left a little bit. And I remember going home that night and talking to my wife and saying, we've got to do something. These kids are in isolation and I see what a visit and playing a game can do for their spirit and light them up and get them excited and help them laugh. And we just started a family foundation that then went into a foundation called Companions in Courage. And I wrote a book very similar to kind of Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's about 56 short, inspirational, heroic sports stories that you get knocked down and you get back up, and then very difficult times and all different stories. But these athletes and everyday heroes go on and do amazing things to inspire others. And Robert inspired me in a way that I said, we've got to figure out a way to build game rooms. We've got to figure out a way to help distract and make these kids feel like they're maybe not in a hospital and connect them through technology to the outside world so they don't feel isolated. And Robert and Jessica and Paul and Eric, kids I remember that were so inspirational. And the Companions in Courage idea was born and we wrote the book and started the foundation and started building these rooms to give kids to go to it that were isolated and allow them to just be kids and play games and just have fun, have special play. So that was a moment that really, impacted me, Chris, and kind of helped inspire and inspires me to this day. And I think about Robert. I just heard from his brother here. It's years later. he and his mom were out in Seattle about a month ago, and I still talk to his family years later. And, we lost Robert probably about 4 or 5 months after that.
Yeah.
And in many ways, those kids, their courage, we're the companions. It's their courage, and we're the companions and courage to kind of help them through the most difficult time and try to put a smile on their face and their family, because it does affect the family too.
Sure. Well, that's just a remarkable story. Are these game rooms set up in the hospitals themselves, and how many hospitals are they in currently right now?
We have 20 hospitals. We're getting ready to do another one here in Connecticut. They're all over North America. As far as Calgary, Montreal, down to St. Louis and Florida, Panama City. We've got them in Carolina. We did about 7 with NHL cities during the All-Star games, Winter Classics also. But they're safe havens. All the rooms have these Corian panels and walls that curve in, kind of like an igloo.
Mm-hmm.
The walls and the panels light up. There's video conferencing pods. There's Xbox 360s. There's computers. There's PCs. The beauty is they're very futuristic. But when a kid goes into the space, he does not feel like he's in a children's hospital, and he's able to connect with his friends, his teachers, his heroes. And one of the things we were able to do a few years in was we did a special deal with Microsoft where kids like Robert, who were in isolation, we built these kiosks so they could roll in a kiosk. They had a monitor, an Xbox 360, and Microsoft did the first time ever a private online gaming network for the kids in the Lions Den rooms and the kids with the kiosks. They could actually play games against each other. And we had 400 of those, and we put them in 80 different children's hospitals. So we're continuing to impact and try to reach as many kids and families as we can to just make that difficult time in a children's hospital maybe a little brighter and put a smile on their face. But it's been over 20 years now, and I would say we probably impact close to 50, 60,000 kids a year now. It's really due to the inspiration of some very special kids, courageous kids that I met during my playing days.
And that's really amazing. Sometimes it just takes a little spark to turn something into something big. What I really love about this is just how forward thinking and proactive it is. The kids love playing video games, and when they get into the hospital, there's probably very few things that can get the sickness off their minds. But I think video games and interacting with other kids is definitely one of them.
Well, you just made an awesome point. 10 years into building these rooms, they did a study. Anthropologists did a study on child burn victims that were in pain 24/7. They had doctors and anthropologists, and they put these kids in a room and they hooked them up to electrodes and put video games in front of them. And there was a red light that was off to the left and a blue light that was off to the right. And the red light was on constantly. And then they started playing video games. Within about 15 minutes, the red light went to blue. And the anthropologist turned to the doctors and said, at this moment, right now, that child's brain is so distracted that he shut down the pain centers, and he's actually not in pain. And the doctor said it can't be. He said he's in constant pain. And the anthropologist said, no. He said, believe it or not, at this moment right now, he shut down the pain centers, and the pain centers shut down the pain. And he said, and it's the best opportunity for healing to take place when you do that. And the doctors they could not believe it. And then, Jim Johnson, who's our executive director for the last 20 years and over 20 years, and has been an amazing teammate in all of this. We've had an amazing group of board members. We've had amazing, friends of the foundation. It's a special team. And Jimmy and I sat back and we said, we've had rooms now for 10 years. And we never thought of these as actual healing centers, because when we would go into the rooms, sometimes the kids would be so engrossed into what they were doing, playing games, video conferencing, all of this, that you could hear a pin drop. And it puts a smile on my face knowing now, after what the anthropologist did, that in many ways it allowed these kids to distract themselves enough that they could maybe forget what was going on and have a moment of less pain or put a smile on their face. And I know there's one other story I'll share with you. A boy named Connor was going into the hospital. His mom was Karen, and we just introduced the kiosks. And Connor was playing on the kiosk, and we were about an hour into introducing the kiosk to all the kids, and we were going to reel them into the rooms, the isolation rooms. But we put him in the Lions Den room first, and the mom, Karen, came over and grabbed Jimmy and myself and started crying. And she said, my son Connor presses his morphine button every 8 minutes, 8 or 9. She says, because I watch it and I look at my watch. She said, he's been in there playing now for 52 minutes and he hasn't pressed his morphine button once. And she goes, that's the best hour of my day. And we started getting emotional and stuff, but we never thought of that. And we always wanted to give kids a safe haven, oasis to just be kids. But we found out it actually did more than that. It created the camaraderie. It created the interaction, got them out of the isolation, made them feel like kids again. They were smiling, laughing. And I'll tell you, Chris, probably the greatest motivation, in meeting the kids like Robert and all the kids during my playing days was 3 times a doctor has come up to me and said, Pat, there's no medical explanation why this child is alive today. We don't know. And
wow,
it puts a smile on my face, because if you can create an environment with joy, happiness, interaction, distraction, colors, and, allow these kids to just escape for a little while. And there's no doctors allowed, no nurses. So it's kind of, a free space, a safe space. And if that can happen and you can inspire the mind and the body to potentially heal, let's just keep building rooms. Let's keep trying to put smiles on kids' faces. Let's keep, doing what Companions Encourage and all of the other foundations are doing to really help kids in children's hospitals.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me too, because here you have a medium and video games that are so often criticized for healthy kids, healthy kids playing them. And here we found a really good benefit for them. And I imagine as these games get more sophisticated, as things like virtual reality get better and better, this is going to be something that kids can really, transport themselves to new worlds and actually still experience life in a way, even while their lives are being held up, right?
Well, Chris, you touched on another thing that I've been talking to Jimmy and our board about. I've been dreaming of the day for 10 years, virtual reality, when we can put I think it's the Oculus, when the headset's on, and a child can be at the beach. He could be flying, or she or he could be flying a plane. They could be having experiences that, and I know, because I've done it about 5 years ago. We went out to Google and I did it, and I was blown away at the physiological impact that it has on your system. You actually, have the heart rate, and
you can feel yourself falling. Yeah.
And I would think that would be tremendous. And so we're actually working on that, because to me, it's all about the experience, creating a positive, inspiring experience in the Lions Den room. So that's something that we are working on. But I try to make a living knowing where the puck was going to go next. And you just asked a very good question, because that's where we're headed.
Yeah. How could I support Companions Encourage if I'm here at a hospital and I wanted to have Companions Encourage install a room at a hospital near me? How would I go about it?
There's a lot of different ways. We have built rooms a lot of different ways. It could be over a lunch meeting. It could be over a bunch of fundraising. We have one in Connecticut where an amazing family started doing a bunch of fundraisers over a 2-3 year period. Sadly, and it was in honor of both their grandmother and grandfather, mom and dad. It was a family that worked with us and, did these fundraising events, and we helped support it. And then CIC, obviously, from our fundraising events, that was one way, and it took years. But now there's this amazing Lions Den room in Connecticut Children's Hospital dedicated to the Masada family. and it was their entire family and their mom and dad, their grandma and grandpa of years of, doing fundraisers and wanting to leave a legacy and wanting to help their local community. That was one way. We've had donors that have come in and just said, hey, I would like to do a room in honor of, a friend, a parent, family member. You could go on the CIC, CIC16.org website. There's different things of upgrades for rooms. We've got Chromebooks. We've got content that we're doing now. Jimmy Johnson does an amazing main event, which is an inspiring 8 to 15 minute story about our companions and courage heroes. There's all kinds of different ways you can help out in your community and help out CIC to help leave that legacy for the kids. And one of the things I want to add, Chris, is one of our biggest events. We do a Santa Connection every year in December. And it's one of the most special days of the year. It's actually 2 days where we go around the 20 Lions Den rooms and we get lists of kids and their wishes and their names and where they're from and their family members. And we have Santa and the North Pole, and we have also a French-speaking Santa. And for 2 days, we go around to every room. There's about 8 to 10 kids, and they actually have a virtual meeting with Santa, who's in the North Pole, and also in French. And then the next day or that day, they get the gift or a gift card, and they get Santa knows their name, he knows their family, and they get to have an experience because they can't go home most likely for Christmas. And then right after that, in early December, we do the Heisman Trust. We have the Heisman winner. After he wins, he comes into the Lions Den room at Mount Sinai and Kravitz Children's Hospital, and we have an interview, a meet and greet, and we beam it out to all the other Lions Den rooms, questions and answers. Mm-hmm. And that's been going on for almost 10 years, probably more than 10 years. Yeah. And it's one of the highlights of the year for these kids to meet the Heisman winner the next morning at the Children's Hospital.
For sure. I've actually been on that trip to the hospital up there I was there with Baker Mayfield, and I can attest to just the way those kids' faces just lit up. Truly amazing stuff. Tell me a little bit about your latest initiative, Cornerstone, about building sustainable youth sports. I'm really curious about that.
Well, I'm still a consultant at the National Hockey League, and when I was there for about 5 years, I worked on development and community affairs, hockey development, community affairs, and really, it's really about Cornerstone is about youth sports and what youth sports really gives you, and how it can bring a community together. Where we have a conversation or a narrative now, where kids, if you're not in that 1/10 of 1% playing pro sports, or you're not getting a scholarship, which is 1%, then, some conversations are, well, then you haven't made it, you're not valued, et cetera. And really Cornerstone is about coaching, and it's about coaching the values of what the game and what sports teaches you. I actually started a brand also called Valor Hockey that is under the same principles that we help with the Declaration of Principles. But it really, Chris, speaks to the values of the sport. So when you ask a parent at the end of the day, what do you really want for your child? And we get the answer, well, I just want my child to be happy, well-rounded, and successful. Well, just like values at home, sports and school are vehicles to reinforce those values. So in hockey, if the real goal is to learn leadership, teamwork, sacrifice, getting knocked down, getting back up, the adversity part, the discipline, all of those life skills and character lessons and values that you need to be successful and happy in life, are there and they're available. And unfortunately, sometimes we focus too much on who's winning, how many wins, and if only one team wins, where's the value? So I think it's bigger than winning. I think it's better than winning. I think winning is great. Don't get me wrong. I think, you do your best. But I think it's really important to start the conversation in coaching and with parents and with organizations and families. The real value of sports is really the life skills and the character development you learn. I can speak. I've stopped, I play here once in a while, but I've stopped playing. But the game lives inside me long after I stopped, Chris. There's not a day that goes by that the skills and the values and the character development I learned through the sport of hockey, I use every day of my life. And so that game still lives inside of me. And I think that's the real value. Hockey was a stepping stone to purpose and service with companions and courage. And what I'm doing today with Valor, Cornerstone, it's really paying it forward.
My producer, Paul, has a couple kids in youth hockey, so he is particularly excited about this interview. What advice would you give him as a dad with two kids playing youth hockey to encourage them to do things the right way?
Well, I think it's important that you find out, because all your kids are different, right? You love them all. Excuse me. You love them all the same, but they're all different. You might have a child that wants to play a certain amount, but then has other interests. You might have one that's elite and wants to play all the time. And I think giving them the platform and the environment to thrive under what is kind of their platform at the time, because everything evolves. And I think we take these kids too quickly, and we automatically think, you have to be this good or you're not valued. You have to score this many goals. You have to do all these things by 13. And if you don't, well, then you're not on the fast track to get a scholarship or play pro. And I honestly believe that it's finding coaches that teach hard work, teamwork, leadership, all those values, creates a positive environment, not only for the child, but for the family, the parents, to make it a positive family experience. And I think there's nothing wrong with being competitive. There's nothing wrong with being in an elite group. They're part of the whole family, but it's embracing the true value. The greatest value of sports is truly the values, the character development, and the leadership, and the life skills that you learn that will live with you for a lifetime. It's no different too, Chris, than as a parent. You choose public school, private school. You send your kids to school to learn all of those values, to learn the education, the curriculum, but also the discipline and everything else to be successful. Sports should be no different.
Right. And finally, you probably touched on a little bit of this. You formed something called the Declaration of Principles a few years back, originally applied to hockey, but it's something that can be applied to all sports. Can you explain that to our audience?
So to me, I ended up hiring a group called Life Sports Solutions out of California, and they went around North America and spoke to coaches, parents, players, rink operators, everybody, administrators, and then also did it at the pro level, the college level, and then even as the highest levels of our commissioner and deputy commissioner and of the National Hockey League. And we all realized that we love this great game for its artistry, its passion, its excitement, its speed, but also the character development and the character lessons and life lessons that it teaches us. And we literally, as a global community, because then the International Hockey Federation came in also, so the global, every single group was represented from across the globe for hockey at every level, signed on to agree to live to a higher standard of principles. And we all crafted, it took, a number of different iterations, but the commissioner had his fingerprints on it, parents had their fingerprints on it, coaches, administrators, rink operators, everyone had their fingerprints on this document. And we had it signed off 17 organizations from the entire global hockey community, USA Hockey, Hockey Canada, college, junior, pro, to aspire to live to a higher standard. And what I believe is if your brand is your behavior behavior is your brand, and you aspire to live to a higher standard, well, you've got an amazing platform there. Now just bring it to life in your behavior. And so what we did too is Valor Hockey is a brand that's associated with the Declaration of Principles. It's a brand built on the ethos of the Declaration of Principles, bringing to life all of those principles, and through products, programs, technology, and service to allow you to live and bring to life and live those standards and live those principles. And to me, that's what everybody asked for. That's what everybody wanted. That's what everybody agreed to live to and live and aspire to be. And that's more important than all of it. It's more important than the conversation of trying to become a pro or college. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But that's only 1%. What about the other 99%? What about all the good and the value that they can take out of the sport of hockey and use and aspire to have in the rest of their lives? And I think, that's something that the Declaration of Principles is so important and such an amazing opportunity. And I think we're the only sport to have done it to date at that level. And hopefully other sports, aspire to and want to bring the entire sport together to create a platform and then now bring it to life. And that's the challenge, but that's what we're doing. And it's exciting. Policy changes. We've seen a lot of things evolve, and the game needs to continue to evolve and in towards living those principles each and every day.
If there's such a thing as a sports visionary, I think we've just talked to him. Pat LaFontaine, one of the great hockey players, 2008 Heisman Humanitarian Award winner, tremendous friend of the Heisman Trust. We thank you for coming on the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
Thank you, Chris. I'm a huge fan of the Heisman Trophy and the Heisman Trust, and you guys are doing amazing work and just honored to be associated with you.
Thank you. The official Heisman Trophy podcast streams every Wednesday during the college football season and is hosted, co-produced, edited, and engineered by Chris Houston. Paul Goldberg is the executive producer and editor. Special shout out to Isaac Lowenkron, and big thanks to the Heisman Trophy Trust and its executive director Rob Whalen and associate director Tim Henning. The official Heisman Trophy podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find clips of our show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just go to @Heisman Trophy.